Who better than me?
Happy New Year and welcome back to another episode of the Hardcore Casual with your boy, Bass the Kid. So as always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, enemy, relative, associate, whoever. So we had a card a couple days back. It was the first card of the year, PBC card, New Year's Day. It was a heavyweight special, so it was 5 heavyweight fights. The first one on that card, on the main card I should say, was Victor Vickers, aka Victor Faust, against Iago Kaladze. Then there was Gerald Washington against Ali Erin Demirezen. Then there was Jonathan Rice against Michael Coffey, the rematch, followed by Frank Sanchez against Christian Hammer, and rounded off at top of the bill was Luis Ortiz against Charles Martin. So if I had to rank these fights in I guess overall entertainment, value for money, just rank them, I guess, 1 to 5. So 5 being obviously the worst fight on the card and 1 being the best. So I think the worst fight would have to be Frank Sanchez against Christian Hammer. Not because either guy was terrible, but in terms of action it wasn't particularly great. Frank Sanchez is very much he's a hit and move kind of guy, very methodical, very sort of cerebral in the way that he attacks and sort of goes about his work, but he's not the most entertaining guy to watch. Sort of very clinical but not really entertaining as such. Like, you're not really going to have him in a lot of drag out wars, which you don't have to. I mean, you know, boxing is hit and not get hit for the most part, and he does that fairly well, but it just wasn't the most entertaining in terms of the actual fights on the card. Now the second, so that would be number 5 for me. Number 4 would actually be Jonathan Rice and Michael Coffey 2, purely because both guys came into this fight let's see, Michael Coffey came into the fight 7 pounds heavier than he was in their first fight, and Jonathan Rice came in like 15 pounds heavier, so that's like a stone and a pound. So the question then becomes, why? Were neither of these guys training, and then all of a sudden they got told, oh well, yeah, we're going to do the rematch in like 3 or 4 weeks, do you want to do it? And yeah, okay, cool, but couldn't get the weight off? Or was this like tactical? I mean, I can't really see it being tactical to come into the ring over 280 pounds. It doesn't really make much sense. But it didn't really catch the same kind of fire as the first fight did back in, I think it was July this year. So I put that as my number 4. Number 3, I would say Gerald Washington and Ali Erin Demirezen. It was a good fight overall, but it was more just a case of, it was a battle of attrition more than anything else. Washington started fairly well, but he has 0 gas tank at this point, and if I'm being real, I don't know if there's anything left for him in boxing. Like, unless you literally just want to be like a journeyman or a gatekeeper, I'm sure you've made enough money from this. I personally, I don't really want to see him back in the ring. There's just not anything left there. 39 going on 40, like, these ain't the right years to be taking punishment. So my personal opinion, like, I don't particularly want to see him. I made a couple jokes with Danny from Fight Fan TV behind the scenes, but I won't put those out here because like I said, this ain't about disrespect. It's just I don't really think he's got much more to go. Now Ali Aaron Demirezhyan, that he's a lot better than people give him credit for. Like I remember when I was first watching his first Olympic run, and then I saw obviously the fight with him and Efe Ajagba, and I knew that he was going to be like sort of the one person to test the Ajagba, and ultimately he did a lot better than anyone in America thought he was going to do. And some people even said that he probably won that fight. I disagree, but he's definitely a person that, you know, he sort of comes forward, he tucks up well, he doesn't take too much clean, he's just high pressure. And if you're not basically if you're not well conditioned, or you haven't got enough to keep him off you, then yeah, he'll just sort of grind you down, which is basically what he did to Washington in that fight. So now my second fight, so the number 2, would have to be Luis Ortiz against Charles Martin. Now what I want to say about this is, look, regardless of whether Ortiz is really 42 or any number of years above that, you can clearly tell, number one, his feet are super slow these days. Like there's no, like if you look at the difference between Frank Sanchez and Luis Ortiz in terms of foot speed, no, okay, there's what, 13 years difference between them, but if you look at the difference in that, you can tell like Ortiz is not even moving in and out of range like the way he used to, say 3-4 years ago. Like he just seems to be getting slower and slower, which is the main reason how we ended up getting taken out the way he did in that second Wilder fight. He just not moving as quick as he used to. He doesn't seem to be taking shots that well. I mean, he got put down by a jab as the second knockdown that he suffered in that fight. The first one, different, you know, side of the head, sort of maybe scrambled the senses a little bit, but he didn't seem too hurt, got back up. Every time he got touched, he wasn't taking the shots the best possible way, which maybe tells you that the punch resistance is sort of waning. And realistically, if he is over the age of 42, which is widely believed, these things happen. You know, your resistance goes as you get older. I personally, even though he won the fight, credit to him, he did manage to pull it out. I think that was more to do with the ineptitude of Charles Martin to actually finish the fight or do something different other than just looking for a hard punch, like he was just looking for that hard backhand all night. There was no combos, there was no setting things up. It was literally just a jab and then followed by, like, you know, the backhand. He didn't angle any of his shots. He didn't set anything up behind the jab. He didn't double jab his way into range. He didn't look to unload any sort of uppercuts. It was all sort of singular movements. I feel like if he had just varied it up a little bit different, he would have got Luis Ortiz out of there, because every time he touched him, Ortiz looked visibly distressed. But ultimately, you say congrats to the older wily veteran. Like I said, there might be a bit of juice left in the tank, but based on that performance, I don't really think he's got much miles left on the clock, if I'm gonna be real. This was an eliminator for the IBF, which means that realistically Ortiz would now have to face Filip Hrgović, and I do not see that fight taking place. Number one, because Ortiz will not fight anywhere other than PBC, and number two, because I just literally think Hrgović may not be proven as such, but that guy's definitely got like sledgehammer fists, and if Ortiz is getting visibly rattled by Charles Martin, yeah, I think Hrgovic will put him to sleep, and put him to sleep quite early in the fight. So he's not going to take that. He might do the Andy Ruiz fight. I guess maybe if he does that fight, that won't be on the IBF side though, because Andy Ruiz isn't ranked in the IBF rankings. So that could maybe be his swan song, his final fight, win, lose or draw. Ultimately, I don't want him really fighting more past that, if I'm gonna be real. But it was a fun fight while it lasted 6 rounds. And I guess I've got to give Ortiz a bit of credit, because he did mash up my accumulator. Like I did predict Charles Martin was gonna win, not because he's better, just because he's younger, and Ortiz, like, it's different for someone like Charles Martin having almost 2 years out of the ring than it is for Ortiz having almost 2 years out of the ring. I just thought all of that would play a factor, like I said, delayed punch resistance and all that stuff. But no, he did his thing, so congrats to him. Now obviously that means that my #1 fight of the night was Viktor Vickers, aka Viktor Faust, against Iago Kaladze. Now it ended very controversially. I still think that Kaladze had some fight left in him. There was 5 knockdowns in the first 2 rounds. Kaladze was knocked down 3 times, and Viktor Vickers was knocked down twice. And where the referee stopped the fight, I definitely feel that was some home cooking, because I truly believe if Viktor Vickers was that same person that wobbled the way that Kaladze did before walking forward towards the ref would have allowed it, just because he was the home fighter. He's the prospect. He's the guy that basically, I'm not saying they've put in their money into, but he's the guy that basically they're trying to push. He's the prospect in that sense. Now, I guess looking at it, the ref must have thought, well, this wasn't part of the script. Both guys are taking damage, whereas only one guy is supposed to be taking that damage, and I've got to do something to make sure that the right person still wins this fight. And there's enough of a I guess there's enough leeway in there for the simple fact that Kaladze did get dropped 3 times, so you can say, well, he probably wasn't going to win, so stop the fight kind of thing. But like I said, both guys were very badly hurt, but they were both hurt the same level, if that makes sense. Like, there wasn't anyone that was like, oh, just taking a pasting and it was just only going one way. Like, it was very ebb and flow. There was, every chance that Vickers could have got knocked down again as well. It was one of those fights where it literally could have gone any way, and that's definitely not the way how you want your prospect to be looking, especially when you've kind of got so much backing behind them. I mean, I can't lie, when the fight was actually happened, I actually tweeted, because I was watching a WWE event at the same time, day one, but I was focused more on the boxing, and I remember tweeting that the ref should have got knocked out for stopping the fight. And then ultimately you see Kaladze threw the jab at the ref. I mean, it was a light tap, but I mean, I can't lie, if it was me, it probably would have been a stiff right, because Kaladze, at this point, look, they called him a journeyman. I feel like he's a lot better than journeyman status, if I'm honest. But it's like, there's only so many times you get to upset the apple cart, or to, sort of to change your fortunes around. and then to have that sort of taken away from you when you're just as much in the fight as the other person, like, yeah, I can understand how, like, you know, if your anger and your emotions maybe take over and you do something that's out of character or something you know you shouldn't do. But yeah, that, what was it, Samuel Burgos was the ref? Like, yeah, like, top dickhead. I was tweeting it all Saturday night, like, big boy dickhead for what he done in that fight, personally. And then he had the cheek to mouth off to the man afterwards. If I was, like I said, if I was Khalid, like, I probably wouldn't have been able to control myself, and I just would have, you know, he would have had to catch a swift one to the jaw. But, you know, he's a better man than me, clearly. Yeah, is there anything else really to go on? We've got there's no boxing in the UK for the month of January, which normally isn't that, it's not that surprising anyway. There was only one main card that we had, which was supposed to be the Liam Williams and Chris Eubank Jr. Don't know when that's getting moved to now, but I mean, Chris is just, at this point, his career is just like a calamity of errors. Like, there's just, his career is basically a sitcom, because anything that can go wrong does. And I feel bad for the guy to a degree. I mean, some of it is of his own making, him and his dad, but you know, like, it just, anytime you think, oh, he's finally getting a move on, or like something's gonna kick into, like, something just happens and it all goes back to, you know, back to 0 seconds. So, but look, yeah, there's not really much else to talk about if I'm gonna be real. Now, maybe something might pop up towards the end of the week worth discussing. If so, I'll be back then. But I'll leave you guys with this one. So for now, Hardcore Casual out.